All right, today we are diving into the wild story of a guy who was right at the heart of 18th century English theater. His name was Colley Cibber, and trust me, his legacy is one fascinating, complicated, and contradictory mess. So, how in the world does someone reach the absolute peak of their profession and at the same time become maybe England's most hated poet? That's the puzzle we're going to unpack today, and it's a story that basically defined his whole life. I mean, this just says it all, doesn't it? On one hand, he gets the highest honor you can imagine, Poet Laureate, the official poet for the royal family. But on the other hand, the most famous poet of the era, Alexander Pope, just mercilessly trashes him, calling him the king of dunces, basically the king of idiots. So that's the big question, right? How can you be a celebrated artist and a total public punchline at the exact same time? Well, we're about to get into it, and the answer tells you a lot about fame, art, and who really gets to write the history books. Okay, so to really understand the man, we've got to start right where the controversy totally blew up, the moment he was named Poet Laureate. And look, let's be clear, this was no small-time award. Being the Poet Laureate meant you were part of the royal household. It was a huge deal, a position of insane prestige that was supposed to go to the absolute best poet in the country. But for Cibber, this massive career highlight was also a total lightning rod for hate. His rivals, especially Pope, thought he was a complete joke and totally undeserving. They were brutal in their attacks, and this one event is what really cemented his reputation as the super controversial figure. But here's the thing. Before he was the controversial poet, Colley Cibber was something else entirely. He was a powerhouse of the London stage, a true showman of Drury Lane. And what's so interesting when you look at his life is where he came from. He didn't just show up and start writing poems. No, he was born in 1671, worked his way up as a fantastic comedic actor, and by 1710, he was running one of the most important theaters in all of London. The whole poetry scandal, that came way later in a long and very successful career. And this, right here, is the huge disconnect. His critics zeroed in on his poetry, but his real power, his real influence, that all came from the theater. He was a hands-on guy, an actor who knew what audiences loved, and a manager who knew how to make a theater thrive. And a huge piece of that success, it came from the plays he wrote himself. See, he wasn't just an actor and a manager. He was one of the hottest playwrights of his time. Just take a look at two of his biggest hits here, Love's Last Shift and The Careless Husband. And check out the themes: vanity, cheating, marriage, forgiveness. He was writing about the stuff that people were actually dealing with in their own lives. And that's why he was so huge commercially. His plays weren't these heavy, boring academic things. They were funny, they were sharp, and they were relatable. He could take on a serious subject like infidelity and make it entertaining with witty dialogue that people loved. And he wasn't just a one-trick pony either. He dove right into the political drama of the day. His play, The Non-Juror, was a straight-up commentary on the Jacobite movement, which was all about loyalty to the king. It just goes to show he had range and wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty. So, you've got this incredibly successful theater guy who's being publicly roasted by the literary snobs. What does he do? Well, late in life, he decides to grab the pen and write his own story. Yep, a decade after becoming Poet Laureate, he drops this autobiography. And the title is just brilliant. An apology back then didn't mean "I'm sorry," it meant a defense. This was his big chance to fight back and set the record straight. And here is the absolute best part, the ultimate irony. While everyone trashed his poetry, they loved his prose. His autobiography was praised for being clear, engaging, and honest. All the things his critics said he wasn't. You know, his memoir was a total masterstroke. It was his defense, his direct reply to all the haters, and on top of that, it gives us this incredible, priceless inside look at the theater world of the time. It was part personal history, part public comeback, and maybe his most successful performance ever. And that brings us right back to that central contradiction. His enemies tried so hard to paint him as the king of dunces, a total hack. But when Colley Cibber finally told his own story in his own words, people loved it. It was a celebrated success. So when you cut through all the noise from his rivals, what's left? What you're left with is an absolutely undeniable legacy. He was a top-tier actor, a powerful manager, a blockbuster playwright, and a hugely important figure in shaping English theater as we know it. Pope might have gotten in some good insults, but Colley Cibber literally built the stage. Which leaves us with one final thought. Was he a true creative genius, or was he more of a brilliant celebrity, a master showman who knew exactly how to give the people what they wanted, even if it wasn't high art? His career really makes you wonder, what's the difference? And which one actually matters more in the long run?